Hi, I'm Srinivas Reddy Palam, lecturer in computer engineering, Puli Kutiksha Government Polytechnic. In today's session, I'm going to discuss course programming in C 18 CM 205C. It is in Diploma in Computer Engineering, first year, second semester. In today's session, I'm going to discuss about a brief overview of one-dimensional arrays. Although we have seen the overview of one-dimensional arrays in the previous sessions itself, but there are some topics that were left mm, mm, to be covered. Okay, so we'll discuss once again what are one-dimensional arrays. Suppose you need to store years of 100 cars, will you define 100 variables? So no, we won't define. If you define also, they will be very big in number like this, int y1, y2, y100. So we have to declare these 100 variables. This will be very difficult to remember these also. An array is an indexed data structure to represent several variables having the same data type int y of 100. So an array is an indexed data structure. So arrays are also a part of a data structure. Data structure is a logical representation of memory. Okay, values, logical representation. How you want to represent your values inside your memory is is a thing that is called a data structure. So the data structures that represent several variables having the same type and which are having all indexes for separate variables. Okay, several of them will be having indexes, so that with those indexes we can identify all these different variables with the same name. Okay, and that representation will be provided to us with the help of these arrays concept. In this case, if you want to store 100 years of 100 cars, okay, years of 100 cars with the 100 variables. So without these 100 variables, we can simply use one variable name, that is array name, that with the subscript 100. Okay, that will allow you to store all these 100 values with a single name. Okay, so this is how they will be stored. You can observe the picture where you can see the first location of your array is identified with the name, that is y of y square bracket of 0. So this square bracket will allow you to mention the subscript. So the subscript is nothing but the location at which your value will be stored in your array. So the first value will be stored at location 0, and then the second will be stored at location 1, like that. 100 value 100 variables value will be stored at subscript number 99. So all these subscripts will be specified with the help inside a square brackets. Inside square brackets you can mention the subscripts, so those subscripts will allow you to specify the variable number. Okay, so suppose if you want to have the location 98. Okay, the 98 location will be identified with the subscript y of 97. But if you want to have the 99 subscript, that will specify you the 100 value. Okay, 100 variable, and these are all stored in a contiguous memory. Okay, all these values will be stored continuously in a single memory, but that memory will be divided into 100 places depending on the size. An element of an array is accessed using the array name and an index or subscript. So the name of the array, okay, will allow you to identify the or access the element of that particular array, and an index or subscript. So using the array name and index or subscript, so both index or subscript are same. Using the array name and index or and array name and subscript, you can access the element. For example, y of 5, which can be used like a variable. In C, the subscripts always start with 0 and increment by 1. So y of 5 is the sixth element. So that is what I already explained in the previous slide. Here in C, the subscript always start with 0. That's why whenever you want to access fifth element, you have to write the subscript number as 4. Y of 4 will give you the fifth element, and y of 5 is the sixth element of your array. The name of the array is the address of the first element and the subscript is the offset. So here the name of the array is the address of the first element. So why, suppose if you want to know the address of the array, why will give you, why is the name of the array, but why itself will give you the address, and using that address you have to add the subscript, um, so that you will get the original value, okay, at that particular address. Y of 5 will give you the subscript, um, at the location specified by 5 y, and to which we have to add the offset, that is 5, so that you will get the value that is stored at the y of 5. Definition and initialization. An array is defined using a declaration statement. So this is the statement that will allow you to declare the one dimensional array, okay. For this we need to have the data type, data underscore type, and after that you have to give space and an array name and a array underscore name of size. This is the declaration statement that will allow you to declare a one dimensional array, allocates memory for size elements. So the as many elements that you require, those that much size you have to specify inside these square brackets just after your array name. And subscript of first element is 0, as already told. Subscript of last element is size minus 1. Size must be a constant, size cannot be anything else. Size must be a constant in the C programming notation. So in C programming, if you want to implement arrays concept, you must specify the size, and this size must be a constant. And here is an example that will allow you to specify a single dimensional array or one dimensional array with size 5, whose name is list, and it is of integer type. Integer array, and integer array means it can store only integer values. And how many values it can store? It can store up to the size of the size mentioned for that particular array while declaring that particular array. And how it is stored is also shown in this particular slide. You can see there is a arrangement, in the particular arrangement we can see the first element is indicated with a list of 0, second is list of 1, third is list of 2, and fourth is list of 3, and the fifth one is list of 4. Since the subscript has started with 0, it should end with a list of 4. Allocates memory for 5 integers. The explanation follows. Allocates memory for 5 integers. Subscript of first element is 0. Subscript of last element is 4. C doesn't check bounds on arrays. And list of 6 is called 5 may give a segmentation fault or override other memory locations. It is actually incorrect, but C doesn't check for bounds on arrays. So the programmer should be vigilant while declaring the array sizes, and while initializing the initialization of the, while he is doing the initialization for the elements of your array, okay. They may give segmentation fault or override other memory locations, so they should be vigilant. Now let's see how to initialize the arrays with C programming. Arrays can be initialized at the time they are declared. Examples: double tax rate of 3 equal to zero point 0.15 comma 0.225 comma zero point 0.3. So it is a array. The array is of type double, and it is a array whose tax rate and its size is 3, so it can store up to 3 values, and the values are also being initialized with 0.15 and 0.25, zero point 0.3, and all these three values are separated with commas, and the declaration is terminated with the semicolon, so that it will allow you to declare and also do the initialization at the same time. So this declaration, which is done at the static time or compilation time, is called static initialization of arrays. Char list of 5 equal to HELLO. So you are going to declare your array. The array is list, and the type is character type, and its size is 5. It is a character array whose size is 5, and the name of the array is list, and it is initialized with the characters HELLO. So there is one simple point that we have to remember while doing the initialization for double, float, and integers. We need not give the values inside the flower brackets inside the single quotation marks, but when you have to initialize the character arrays, we have to specify the individual characters in single quotes so that it is correct, otherwise it will be incorrect. Double vector of 100 is 0 0.0, assigns 0 to all 100 elements. So what it will do is it will initialize this double array. The name of the array is vector, and all the other elements are going to be initialized with 0. Okay, 0 0.0 is also same as 0, that's why it will initialize all 100 elements of your vector array with zeros only. Int s of no size specified equal to 5 comma 0 comma minus 5. Although we have not specified the size here, in this case the compiler will calculate the size of this particular array. The name of array is size s, and it has since it is initialized with 3 elements, so the size will be calculated, and the size is now it will become 3. Let's see how to assign values to an array using the dynamic or execution time, runtime or dynamic initialization of the arrays. For loops are often used to assign values to an array using the dynamic initialization or execution time. Okay, as already seen, we have array with 5 elements. List is the name of the array, and it is having 5 elements. That those all elements are integers. And it has one variable, I variable, that is used for a loop variable. It is used as a loop variable. So inside the for loop we are initializing the list of I. It is initialized with I. So for loop, if you look at the loop logic, it is initialized with a loop variable I equal to 0, and I is less than 5. So first time I will be 0 0 less than 5, so it is true. Then it will enter into the for loop, and it is initialize it will allow you to initialize the list of I, that is 0. List of 0 is initialized with I, whose value is again 0. So list of 0 is initialized with 0, then I will be incremented, I will become 1. 1 will be less than 5, so again the condition for the for loop is true. So list of 1 will become now 1, that is list of 1 is initialized with 1 only. Like that it will initialize all the 5 values with i's only. So list of 0 is 0, list of 1 is 1, list of 2 is 2, list of 3 is 3, list of 4 is 4. Then I will be incremented, so I will become 5, 5 less than 5. So the for loop condition will fail, then it will come out from the for loop. So the by just after coming this for loop, coming out from this for loop, you can see the values initialized inside this list array as 0 1 2 3 4, which is nothing but the number of iteration of your for loop. So this is the output that you can expect after running this simple code snippet of your for loop. Or you can do one more thing, where you are having for I equal to 0, I less than or equal to 4, I plus plus, list of I equal to I. This will also do the same. The first case, first time 0 is less than or equal to 4, so loop will become true. List of 0 will be assigned with 0, then I will be incremented 1 less than or equal to 4. Then again list of 1 will be initialized with 1. Then I will be incremented 2, 2 will become 2 less than or equal to 4. Then list of 2 will be initialized with 2. Then again I will be incremented, I will become 3, 3 less than or equal to 4. Then again condition will become true. List of 3 will be now initialized with 3. Then again condition variable I is incremented 4, I will become 4. 4 is less than or equal to 4. Then again the condition is true. So list of 4 will be initialized with 4. After that I will be incremented to 5. 5 is less than or equal to 4. Here the condition loop condition variable will be failed, so it will come out from the for loop. So both of these codes are same, although the condition variable is differing in the for loop part. Give a for loop to assign the below values to this to its to list, and you can see the code. Here the list of 0 is initialized with 4, list of 1 is initialized with 3, and list of 2 is initialized with 2, list of 3 is initialized with 1, list of 4 is initialized with 0. So you are going to decrement your 4 with the number of times your loop was iterated. So for the first time the loop is iterated 0 time, loop variable is I is 0, so you are going to assign 4 minus 0 to your list of I, so that will assign you 4 inside list of 0. Then your I will become 1. Then you are going to initialize a list of 1 with 4 minus 1, that is 3. So that is true. Then list of 3 will be initialized with 4 minus 2. So that will become list of 2 will become 2. List of 3 will become 4 minus 3. That is 1. List of 4 will become 4 minus 4. So the concept is very simple. You have to initialize list of I with 4 minus I. That is the logic. Now let's see the computation. So we are going to see some of the operations that we can do on one dimensional arrays. So this is the first operation that we are going to perform on the one dimensional arrays is finding the maximum value in a data array. So the concept is in the data of 100 there is a array. The array name is data and it has 100 values, and we have one variable max, and also we have a variable I. Max variable is used for storing the maximum value inside this data array, and we have I that is used for loop variable as a for loop variable. For I equal to 0, I less than 100, I plus plus data of I equal to rand underscore int of 10 comma 109. So we use one function, random function, and that is going to initialize the data array with 100 values between 10 and 109. So all these values between 10 and 109 will be assigned randomly to all the locations of your data array, and you are going to hold max equal to data of 0. So at the first time before you are going to implement the logic, you are going to assign max with the data of 0. So the very first value, it can be the maximum value or it cannot be, but you are going to store your starting value of your data array to the variable max. Then you using the for loop concept, you are implementing the logic to find the maximum value inside your the one dimensional array. So what is the logic that you have implemented in this maximum is, we are comparing the individual elements of your data array with the max. So that is that is what we initialized by default to data of 0. Then you are comparing your data of I with max. So you are comparing simply data of I with max. So the very first time it will be 0, but later on it will be modified. If at all, if your data of I is greater than your max, then you are simply exchange you are assigning your max with data of I. That means you are comparing your data of I and max, and whichever is bigger number, you are simply changing your max with data of I. If at all, if your data of I is bigger than max, you are going to change your max to data of I. If at all, if it is not bigger, then your max will be by default whatever it was there before your for loop iteration. Like this, you are going to compare all your data of i's with your max, and you are changing your max with that particular data of I. Whenever your data of I is bigger than your max, you are simply exchange your max with the data of I. Like this, you are going to repeat your for loop for 100 times starting with index 1 and till 99. You are going to iterate your for loop, and at the end of your for loop, you are going to have your max in your max variable. So you are going to print that max variable is the maximum number using the printf statement after the for loop was completed. Printf max equal to percentage d slash n comma max. At the end of your loop iteration, you will hold the maximum value in your max variable, and you are going to print it using the printf statement. That is the logic to find the maximum number. Then we have another program that is to find the average of your one dimensional array elements. So how to find the average values through data arrays? The simple thing we have to use is here we have to find the sum of all the individual elements of your original one dimensional array, and also you have to do the initialization of your original one dimensional array. The array in this case is data, name of the array is data, and it has 100 values. So you have to initialize all the 100 locations of your data array with 100 values using the random underscore int function, which is a standard function that is to find the to get the integers in between some least value and the maximum value. So between least and max you will have some random integers, and that random integer will be picked up with this random underscore int function, and it will be assigned to data of I, and this will be implemented for all the iterations of your for loop, for starting with index 0 and up to 99. So you have to write the for loop logic as for I equal to 0, I less than 100, I plus plus. So between 0 and 99 you are going to have the values that are going to be picked up using the random underscore int function, and they are all going to be stored at locations separately, that is 0 to 99. Once you have stored all these are that is we have initialized the data array with the values in between the 10 and 109 randomly, then we have to use some variable, that is sum variable sum, which is used to store the sum of the um, individual array elements. So initially it is initialized with 0, so that you can add to this sum the value that is that you have iterated consecutively. Okay, for I equal to 0, I less than 100, I plus plus, you are going to repeat you are going to iterate your for loop from I equal to 0 to 100, so that you, from 0 to 99 you are going to fetch all the values from your data array, and you are adding that array element to the sum variable, and you are going to have it stored in the sum variable itself just after that particular iteration completed. So if you look at the logic, for is initialized, for variable I is initialized with 0, and 0 is less than 100. Once the 0 is less than 100, the condition is true, hence it enters into the for loop, and then it will initialize, it will do some logic, that is sum is uh, assigned as sum plus data of I. So initially sum is 0, so 0 plus 0 will be added to data of I, that is the value to data of I will be fetched and it will be added to sum. So data I will be added to sum and it will be stored back in the sum variable itself. Now only one value was fetched from your data file, that is zeroth location value. Then you have to fetch the second location. So you have to increment your for loop. So the for loop variable I will be incremented, post incremented. Then I will become 1. Now you are going to compare your I will be with 100. In this case I is 1, so 1 is less than 100, again it is true. Then you are going to add some you to sum plus data of I. So sum was initially data of 0, then this will be added to data of 1. So sum of 0 is added, sum that is data of 0 is added to data of 1. Then data of 0 plus data of 1, whatever you get, that will be added to sum back, and that is assigned to sum back. Then your I value will be incremented, then I will become 2. So 2 is less than 100. Then say again the condition is true. Then sum will be added to sum plus sum previously was data of 0 plus data of 1. Then that will be added to data of 2. So you, again you will have, in place of sum you will have data of 0, data of 1, data of 2. Both these three values were added and stored back in sum. Like this you have to iterate till 99th index of your data. So by this repetition of for loop you will have all the 100 values added up in your sum variable, and the result is in now sum. Then our program is to find the average of the data array contents. So how you have to get the average is double of sum by 100, since the array has 100 elements, and the average logic is to divide the number of total by the number of contents inside your array. So how many elements are there in your array is 100, and the sum is actually there in the sum variable. So you have to convert, since the contents of this data is data array are integers, we have to use explicit type conversion, so that the sum will be converted to double. When it is divided by 100, it will give you the average. So average will become now a double value. That is what, that is how and that is how it got converted. And since the average is again integer variable, the converted double converted sum is again converted implicitly into a integer variable. So average is a integer value. So you have to use printf average equal to percentage lf slash n comma average. So by this you can print the average of your array content. This is the simple program, that is the operation that we can, one of the operation we can perform on the one dimensional array elements, that is to find the average of elements present inside a one dimensional array. Now number of there is one more operation, number of elements greater than average. After finding the average as shown in previous slide, use the following code though, so that we can count the number of elements which are greater than the average. So this is the logic where we used one variable count variable for I equal to 0, I less than 100, I plus plus. If data of I is greater than average, what we are going to do is we are going to increment the counter. If at all, if your data of I is greater than average, whatever average that you have found, if that average is less than data of I, one of the element of your data array, once it is greater than, that is array element is greater than average, you are going to count, you are going to count that as one instance where you have found your element is greater than average. That is the program that what we are implementing. So you are going to increment the counter count plus plus, and you are going to again increment the I plus plus. So your I will be incremented. First of all, I is 0, so data of 0, if at all if it is greater than average, it will increment your count. Otherwise it will simply increment I plus plus, then I will become 1. Again your data of 1 will be compared with average. If at all if it exceeds the average, again your count will be incremented. Otherwise it will simply go to I plus plus part, there I will be incremented, and like that it will be keep on incrementing I, and keep on checking corresponding ith positions data element, data array element, whether it is exceeding average or it is less than average, and depending on the logic whether it exceeds the average, your count will be incremented. Then once you complete all these for loops iterations, then you are going to do one more you are going to execute one more printf statement where you are going to print the percentile d elements are greater than average, that is count. So how many elements are greater than is nothing but the variable that is count. The count elements are greater than average, that means suppose if you get a 5 elements, that is count is incremented 5 times, then your logic will automatically say that you have 5 elements which are greater than average. So you have to print count in place of percentile d. For that we have to write print of percentile d elements are greater than average, sorry, comma count. Now let's move how to pass arrays as function arguments, so that you can implement the logic of implementing the arrays contents sorting. Okay, function arguments, individual elements of an array can be passed as regular elements. Why do nothing int a comma int b? So like individual elements, you can, how you can pass the, in the same manner you can pass the array names also as arguments. Int main void declaration variables and functions. Int array of I equal to 1 2 3 4 5, these are the values that are present inside your array. 5 elements, 5 values. Do nothing array 2 comma array 4. So what we are passing here is we are passing individual array elements, so we have to pass array followed by square bracket array square bracket of 2, and okay. So array subscript will tell you array of 2 will fetch you the value number 3, and array of 4 will give you the value that is 5. So that is 5. Okay, so you are, what you are ultimately going to pass is, in place of a you are going to pass array of 2, that is number 3, and in place of 4 you are going to pass ultimately that is 5. Okay, array of 2 is 3 and array of 4 is 5. So you are going to pass to A, we are going to pass 3, and to B we are going to pass 5. So this is how we can write array elements passed as arguments to functions. Particularly this logic is useful when you are going to sort the array elements or array contents. Passing arrays, entire arrays to function. Arrays are always passed by reference. Modifications to array are reflected to main program. The array name is the address of the first element. These are all we have seen. While we have discussed this two-dimensional arrays concept, we have already seen how to pass the arrays as function arrays as arguments to functions. The maximum size of the array must be specified at the time the array is declared. The actual number of array elements that are used will vary, so the actual size of the array is usually passed as another argument to the function. So we have to pass the array size also as one of the argument to the function. Apart from the array name itself, we have to pass the array size also as one of the argument to the function to which we are passing. Now let's see how to sort an array. Okay, in this we are going to sort an array. The contents of array are 631972, and we are going to sort these into a ascending order. That is, we are going to pass sort it into like this. Okay, the final step, that is 1 2 3 6 7 9. Finally, once we sort the array, we have to get the content of array as 1 2 3 6 7 9. Okay, the logic is here we can use one of the sorting technique, that is selection sort. We are going to use void selection underscore sort. To this function we are going to pass the array, enter array as argument, and we have to pass also the size of the array, that is x content x what is the number of elements in this x array also we have to pass. And we have inside the selection sort logic, we have to write int k comma j comma m double temp. We have to use these variables so that we can use whenever they are required. For k equal to 0, k less than n minus 2, k plus plus. So this is the for loop logic we have to write, and we are going to assign m equal to k. So the iteration number is going to be stored in one variable, that is m. And after that, inside this for loop, we are going to write one more for loop, that is for j equal to m plus 1, j less than or equal to n minus 1, j plus plus. If x of j is less than x of m, m equal to j. So what we are going to do is we are going to compare the element at a position equal to j is compared with m. And how many times it is compared? It is compared till it reaches the end of that particular row size. Okay, then we are going to assign if at all if x of j is less than x of m, then what we are doing is we are simply changing m to j. Then this is repeated several times, so that finally we are going to have in place of m the particular element that is less than all the other elements, and that will be pointing in m. Okay, so m will hold the element that is lesser than all other elements in the first iteration. As we have seen in the previous slide, the number 1 is compared with all other elements, all other rest of the elements, and if at all if it is lesser than all other elements, then it will be brought to the first position. The position is at the first part of your array. So index 1, that is subscript 1, will have the least valued element in the array, and that is exchanged with the element that is already existing in place of that particular position initially. Then it is iterated for several times, so that finally you will have the array sorted. So these are the code snippets that find the minimum position, and then the code snippet that implements the swap of xkm. And then void selection sort of double x int n in k comma m for k equal 0, k less than or equal to n minus 2, k plus plus. I'm equal to find min position x and k. Using functions also we can implement this logic. This is illustrated. This all we will come to when we come to function concept, we can clearly understand how to write these. Okay, the same using the function technique. Okay, let's see how to reverse a array. Okay, so this is how this is the slide that illustrates you how to reverse an array. the concept that uses that we use to for reverse an array content is while reverse of double x array comma indian, we have to pass the array entire array and also the number of elements in the particular array as arguments to the function reverse, and int I equal to 0, I j is initialized to n minus 1, that is the number of elements minus 1. So it will give you the number of elements and your loop should be iterated from till it reaches n minus 1 from 0. Okay, from 0 to n minus 1 your while loop is going to be iterated and you are going to use the swap logic that simply exchanges I with j and j with I, and then we are going to once you swap the contents of I and j, what you have to do is you have to increment I with I minus I plus 1 and j should be decremented with j minus 1. So that means the original arrays second element will be fetched into I, and then the last from the last the second element will be fetched into j, so that the second element from the first and the second element from the last are now exchanged, so you can ultimately swap all the other elements. And once your while loop fails, you will have all the elements from the uh, beginning are exchanged with end, and beginning plus 1 is exchanged with swapped with end minus 1. Like this it will swap all the elements of the particular array that we have to reverse. Okay, the same logic was shown in this screenshot in the previous slide. Okay, now let's see how to implement matrix multiplication. In matrix multiplication, if A is an n by m matrix and B is a m by p matrix, their matrix product AB is n by p matrix, in which the n entries across a row of across a row of A are multiplied with the p entries down a column of B, and sum to produce an entry of AB. The same we can understand with the mathematics implementation. So you can see A is a matrix and B is another matrix, and matrix multiplication, since the matrices are both with the same dimension, so you can perform the matrix multiplication and the result you can see in the AB. So the multiplication AB is now here like this. There is one rule, that is compatibility, that we have to see ensure while performing the matrix multiplication. A matrix is a compatible with another only if the number of columns in the first matrix is equal to the number of rows in the second. So here there is an example. There is a 2 by 3 matrix which is A, and there is a B matrix that is 3 by 3. Here you can see the number of columns of your matrix A are equaling with the number of rows of second matrix B, which are both 3. So it will produce the result is 3 by 3 matrix, that is number of rows in matrix A multiplied with number of number of columns in matrix A across number of rows in matrix B will give you the resultant matrix, that is the final result matrix, that is multiplication matrix. And in another example, 2 by 3 matrix is there, and there is a 2 by 3 another matrix. Here the number of columns of matrix A is not equal to the number of rows of matrix B, hence it is incompatible or uncompatible. If at all if there is one more row present, that will become then your B matrix will become 3 by 3 matrix, and it will be compatible to perform multiplication. So there is a matrix, we have a matrix, and we can see the result how it is calculated. See here, the first row of your matrix A is multiplied with the first column, so that it will fetch you the first element. 3 into 2 is 6 and 4 into 4 is 16. 6 plus 16 is 22, that will give you the first element. Then again 3 by 4, 3 4 is multiplied with 3 5 back. Then that will give you the result, that is 29. Then again you can see 3 4 is now multiplied back with the 1 comma 8, so that you can get 35. Like this you can observe 5 by 2, 5 2 is multiplied with 2 comma 4, so that you will get the result 18. And then 5 2 is multiplied with 3 5 and you will get 40, and 5 2 is multiplied with 7 6 you will get 47, and again 5 2 is multiplied with 1 8 you will get 21. Then 1 6 that is row 1 6 is multiplied with 2 4, so that you will get 26. 1 6 is multiplied with 3 5 you will get 33. 1 6 is multiplied with 7 6, so that you will get 43 as a result, and again there is a 1 6 that you multiply with 1 8 you will get 49, which is the result. And this matrix multiplication which is the same how it is implemented we can see here. This is the logic. While performing the addition of individual elements we are using some logic. The logic that we are using is C of ij is, which is a intermediate result, that is C of ij is a of I comma k into b of k comma j, and that should be your k should be repeated by number of number, that is number j. Okay, so two number of times it should be multiplied, and that is which is equal to nothing but number of rows number of columns in your first matrix, or it can be equal to the number of rows in your second matrix. So total two times your multiplications and additions are going to be performed in intermediate while calculating your matrix multiplication product. You can see number of rows are in your first matrix are 3 and number of columns are 2, and these number of columns in your first matrix that is A matrix should be equal to number of rows in second matrix. So here you can see the number of rows in your second matrix are 2, so number of columns in your first matrix are now equal to the number of rows in your second matrix, so you can perform your matrix multiplication. And how you are going to perform the matrix multiplication so that you can get the individual element of your resultant matrix, that is how you got 22 is also shown here. So what you have to do is you have to multiply your first row of your first matrix with first column of your second matrix, so which is shown separately, where you can see 3 comma 4 is the first row, and you have 2 comma 4 second first column of your second matrix. Here you are multiplying 3 with 2, and then 4 with 4, so that is you are multiplying the um, uh, uh, I is 0, so 0 comma k you are multiplying with 0 k, we are multiplying with 0 that is 0 k, that is j comma k, so we are multiplying I comma k with j comma k, uh, or we can say k comma j. Since we have to mention row first, we can say that I comma k is multiplied with k comma j. Like that you are going to repeat it how many times you are going to repeat it for k less than or equal to the number of columns in your first matrix or number of rows in your second matrix. The logic is C of I comma j, that is we get the only single element, that is C of I comma j only. We will get the C of I comma j is A of I comma k into B of k comma j. The first time k is 0, so k is repeated one time. After that you will get the partial product of your summation. That summation should be added to the added once again with k equal to 1. So A of I comma 1, B of k comma j. Okay, k comma j, that is a of I comma 1 or into b of 1 comma j, a of I comma 0 into b of 0 comma j, or a of I comma 1 into b of 1 comma j, or else what you can say simply a of I comma k into b of k comma j, or a of I comma k into b of k comma j. They should be added so that you will get the intermediate element, that is the one individual element of your result matrix. The same logic we are going to implement in matrix multiplication. How we are going to implement is we have to repeat first row so that it will get you the first matrix contents, then you have to iterate the second row inside this. The first row is for the first matrix, second row second for loop is for the second matrix, and then we are going to initialize the individual elements content with the intermediate result C of I comma j is 0. Okay, then for k equal to 0, k less than m, k plus plus,
should be written so that you can implement the logic of getting the individual elements of your resultant matrix C matrix. And for k equal to 0, k less than m, k plus plus C of ij equal to C of ij plus A of ik into B of kj, which will give you the intermediate elements once you perform the matrix multiplication. This is how we have implemented the matrix multiplication. So in this session we have seen how what are the one-dimensional arrays, and we have seen certain operations that we can perform on the one-dimensional array elements, like finding the maximum element, and also we have seen how to find the how to sort the array elements, and also we have seen how to reverse the array contents, that is one-dimensional array contents, and also we have seen what are two-dimensional arrays, little bit of two-dimensional arrays, and also we have seen how to perform matrix multiplication. Okay, and this completes our session for today. Thank you.